The summer sun hung low over the rolling hills of Willow Creek, Tennessee, casting a warm golden glow across the still waters of Clearview Lake. It was August 23, 2024, and my grandfather, Walter Grayson, a 74-year-old Vietnam veteran and retired master carpenter, had just settled into his dream retirement home, a modest cabin he'd spent the last year restoring on a 15-acre plot of forested land. The property was his sanctuary, a place where the world's noise faded into the rustle of leaves and the gentle lapping of lake water. But peace, as we'd soon learn, was a fragile thing, easily shattered by the ambitions of a power-hungry neighbor named Linda Voss. It all began on a quiet Wednesday morning. The clock on Walter's kitchen wall read 7:45 a.m. when he found the letter taped to his front door. It wasn't just any letter, it was a notice of violation, stamped with the seal of the Clearview Shores Homeowners Association, a group that held no legal sway over Walter's land, which sat well outside their jurisdiction, as confirmed by records at the county courthouse. The notice, dripping with bureaucratic arrogance, accused Walter of two violations: unauthorized occupancy of his own home, where he'd lived for just 4 weeks, and creating an environmental hazard with his brand-new, state-of-the-art septic system. The red ink at the bottom screamed, "Final warning," pressed so hard it bled through the paper. It was a threat, plain and simple, meant to intimidate. But Walter, a man who'd faced far worse than petty paperwork in his life, didn't flinch. He folded the notice, tucked it into his pocket, and drove his old Chevy pickup to the local diner for coffee. "I'm Ethan, Walter's grandson, a freelance photographer who'd been staying with him to help with the move and document the cabin's transformation. When he called me about the letter, I knew this wasn't a simple mistake." I met him at the diner, where he laid the notice on the table over a plate of pancakes. The paper was flimsy, the HOA logo at the top pixelated, like it had been slapped together in a rush. I pulled out my camera and started documenting resolution photos of the letter, time-stamped at 8:32 a.m. Every detail mattered. Walter, ever the pragmatist, just shook his head. "Some folks have too much time on their hands," he said, sipping his coffee. He wasn't angry, just weary, his dream of a quiet retirement already under siege. Our first clue about the source of the trouble came later that day at the general store. There she was, Linda Voss, the HOA's self-proclaimed compliance director. She was in her late 50s, dressed in a pristine blazer with the same shoddy HOA logo embroidered on it. Her smile was all teeth, sharp and insincere. "Walter, so nice to see you settling in," she cooed, her voice thick with false warmth. Walter nodded politely, but I held up the notice. "We have a question about this," I said, keeping my tone even. Linda's eyes flicked to the paper, and she let out a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, that? Just a clerical error. I'll handle it personally." Her hand brushed Walter's arm, a gesture that felt more like a warning than reassurance. For a moment, we dared to hope it was a mix-up. That hope died at 10:15 p.m. That night, I was editing photos in my room when a sharp crack of twig snapping pierced the silence. I killed the lights and crept to the window. There, at the edge of the woods, was Linda, dressed in dark clothes, her flashlight beams slicing through the night. She paced like a predator, snapping photos of the cabin with her phone, the flash glaring against Walter's bedroom window. My heart raced. This wasn't a mistake, it was a calculated move. I grabbed my camera, switched to night vision, and recorded her every step. Her face, caught in the lens, was a mask of cold determination. She muttered into her phone, her voice carrying on the wind. "He's here now, and I'll make sure they take care of it." The words sent a chill down my spine. This was war, and we didn't even know who they were. I backed up the footage 3 times: laptop, external drive, SD card. You can't be too careful with evidence. The next morning, Walter and I prepared for whatever was coming. We didn't have to wait long. On a crisp Saturday morning at 6:50 a.m., as Walter sat on his dock with a fishing rod and a steaming mug of coffee, the peace was shattered by the wail of sirens. 2 sheriff's patrol cars rolled down the gravel drive, their lights flashing silently. Linda Voss stood at the edge of the lawn, arms crossed, in a garish tracksuit, clutching a stack of papers. She marched toward the younger deputy, barely out of his cruiser, and waved the documents in his face. "This man," she declared, pointing at Walter, "is squatting on HOA land. He's stealing lake water that belongs to our community. Her voice was a performance, loud and theatrical, meant to draw a crowd. Walter walked up from the dock, his face calm but his eyes like steel. He ignored Linda and spoke to the older officer, Sheriff Daniel Holt. "Good morning. I'm Walter Grayson. This is my property." Linda scoffed. "He's lying. I have the violation forms right here." She thrust her papers at Holt, who scanned them with a tired expression. He turned to Walter. "Sir, do you have proof of ownership?" Walter nodded, and I sprinted inside to grab a manila envelope. Walter pulled out the deed, crisp with the county seal, 5 years of tax receipts, and an old commendation from his Vietnam service, which he held but didn't show. Holt studied the deed, his brow furrowed. The younger deputy, clearly annoyed, asked Linda, "Ma'am, do you have a parcel ID proving this land falls under HOA jurisdiction?" Linda faltered, her smirk fading. "It's in the system," she stammered, waving vaguely. "I recorded everything, my phone capturing every word, every gesture, time-stamped in the corner." Linda noticed and turned crimson. "He's refusing to comply," she shrieked, demanding Walter's arrest. But Holt had seen enough. His eyes caught the faded army patch on Walter's fishing vest, a relic of the 1st Infantry Division. His posture shifted, shoulders squaring, and he raised his hand in a crisp salute. The air changed. Linda's drama collapsed like a house of cards. Walter returned a sharp nod, a silent understanding passing between two men who'd seen the world's weight. By 11 a.m., Holt and Walter were sitting in Adirondack chairs, coffee in hand, swapping stories of their service. Linda paced by her car, her phone pressed to her ear, her plan in tatters. Holt took another look at Linda's papers, now clearly amateurish in the daylight. He handed one to his deputy. "Check the dates." The deputy read aloud. "Violations dated May 10th and May 16th. I pulled up photos on my phone, timestamped July 8th, showing Walter's moving truck. "He wasn't even here in May," I said. Linda's face went pale. She snatched her papers and stormed off, vowing to take it to the county. Holt handed me the original notice. "Keep this," he said. "It might matter later." I zoomed in on the HOA seal with my camera. It was warped, pixelated fake. The fight wasn't over. Linda wasn't the type to quit. We went on the offensive. I spent hours at the county clerk's office, pulling every record tied to Walter's land. The deed was clean, the taxes paid, and there was no trace of HOA jurisdiction. The clerk printed a certified GIS map showing Walter's property a half-mile outside Clearview Shore's boundary. I compared it to the HOA's own map online. Walter's land was in a different plat entirely. I called the HOA's management company, reading off Linda's violation numbers. "Those don't exist in our system," the confused staffer said. Then I found the smoking gun. The signature on the notices, a flamboyant scrawl labeled HOA President, didn't match the tight script of the real president, James Carter, found in public filings. Linda wasn't the president, she was just a volunteer compliance officer with no real power. I compiled everything: maps, fake violation numbers, the forged signature, and Linda's real title into an email to Carter and the HOA board. I attached photos, the trespassing video, and a polite question: did the board authorize these actions? Within hours, 2 board members replied, horrified. "Completely unsanctioned," one wrote. "She doesn't represent us," said the other. Victory felt close, but Linda had one last card to play. A week later, a letter arrived from the State Department of Environmental Protection. Linda had filed a complaint claiming Walter's septic system was leaking sewage into Clearview Loch, a lie that could cost thousands in fines or even condemn the cabin. The inspection was set for September 10th. Walter, unfazed, polished his tools, treating it as a test of his skill. The inspector, Mark Reynolds, arrived promptly, a no-nonsense man with a clipboard and testing gear. Walter showed him the septic system, pristine and over-engineered, with blueprints and permits in hand. Reynolds tested everything, nodding approvingly. "Looks better than code," he muttered. My phone recorded it all. Then Linda appeared, storming down the drive, her voice shrill. "Inspector, you can't trust him. He's not licensed." Walter calmly pointed to his master carpenter certification. Reynolds shut her down. "Ma'am, this system exceeds requirements." Linda froze, her accusation crumbling. She fled, her car screeching away. The official report later confirmed no violations. But Linda wasn't done. At 11:07 p.m. that night, my security app pinged, motion at the mailbox. The camera caught Linda, in gloves, prying open the mailbox and stealing mail. I saved the footage, took stills, and collected a torn envelope she'd discarded, using tweezers to preserve fingerprints. The next morning, I sent the evidence to Sheriff Holt and James Carter. Holt called within an hour, his tone grave. Mail tampering is a federal crime. Bring the video and envelope to my office. Carter called next, apologetic. She's been removed from the HOA. This was never authorized. That afternoon, we handed Holt the evidence. He sealed it in an envelope, his face unreadable. We'll handle it, he said. 2 days later, on September 12th, 2 patrol cars pulled up not to our cabin, but to Linda's house across the street. She stepped out in a bathrobe, expecting another chance to accuse Walter. Instead, Holt held up a warrant. Karen Voss, you're under arrest for forgery, false reporting, and mail tampering. The handcuffs clicked shut. Linda's screams, "I'm the HOA," fell flat. Holt's reply was ice cold. You're not even on the board. He saluted Walter one last time as they led her away. The local paper ran the story. Former HOA volunteer arrested for fraud, trespass. Linda's mugshot, tear-streaked and defeated, was front-page news. A week later, Walter hosted a barbecue for the neighbors. People shared stories of Linda's petty tyranny, finding one for a wrong-colored mailbox, reporting another's cat as a stray. Walter, flipping burgers, just smiled. He'd never wanted a fight, but he'd won with patience and proof. As he always said, you can't outrun gravity. The truth always pulls you back. What would you do if a neighbor tried to weaponize fake authority against you? Have you ever faced a bully like Linda? And how did you fight back? Drop your stories below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more tales of justice served.